Hey guys, before we start this episode of Who Actually is Spartan Blades, I just wanted to let you know that this episode is also sponsored by Spartan Blades. Spartan Blades, your stop for knives like the Spartan-Harsey Folder, the Enyo, the Difensa, and so much more super awesome and cool knives. Check them out, and now have fun listening to Who Actually is Spartan Blades. Moin moin and a dear welcome to another episode of Tim's Sprachnachrichten, or for you English-speaking people, Tim's voicemails. And today I have the honor, for me, it's a huge honor to introduce to you Curtis. Sorry for butchering your last name.
It's
Iovito, right?
It's Iovito.
Iovito, okay.
I come from Chicago, so I tell everybody just remember Iovito $20. Best way to remember.
Yeah, that's a good line to remember. Yeah. The man, the myth, the legend behind Spartan Blades. Curtis, it's an honor to have you on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. That makes me happy to hear. So, I don't know. We got into contact a few weeks ago, right? Mm-hmm, and then we started chatting, and now we are here. And I have a bunch of questions for you to ask because I want to let people know what's the story behind Spartan Blades. And I think for me, Spartan Blades, as I got into EDC, Spartan Blades was always a name traveling with me, right? You got into business back in 2006, right?
2008. Yeah.
8. Yeah, okay, 8. I mean, I have the PDF open. I could look into it, right? Because it's standing there, yeah. But I don't.
That's okay. We're just two guys talking about knives. That's all right.
Yeah. So the first question I ask everybody is, has EDC always played a role in your life?
Well, yes and no. I was a Marine for a few years, and then I was in the Army till I retired. And we never called what we carried EDC, but we absolutely always had one. We always carried a pocket knife. Most of the guys always carried a small flashlight. Of course, your wallet, because military ID, traveling ID. We were in different countries, so that was always important. One of the things I always carried when I was a sniper in the Army was a necklace. It was my good luck necklace with a bullet on it, because I worked as a sniper. So while we didn't call it EDC, absolutely. EDC and what we carried was very, very important, especially when we were working, depending on the mission we're on. But I've always had a pocket knife in my pocket since I was a little kid. So,
yeah, I mean, EDC gets a whole different topic in the Army, right? Because it's a bit more tactical than the urban EDC for us here in Germany actually is. Right?
That's true. Most of us guys tend to carry larger knives just because you didn't know what your day-to-day tasks were going to be, whether it's opening a box, an MRE, self-defense. So we tend to go with slightly larger knives. I think today with the size of knives what people carry, it probably didn't seem that big back then. But, when I was younger, we didn't have a lot of options for knives. It was pretty much what was sold at the PX. The companies have been around forever, K-Bar, Gerber,
Oh, yeah.
Spyderco, when they first came out, were very popular.
With your experience in tactical and reliability of knives, would you rather carry a folding knife, or a fixed blade?
I think day-to-day, I'd rather carry a folding knife because it's practical, right? I mean, most of the time, it's sitting in your pocket. And it really depends. And if I'm in a suit, I'll carry something that's thinner and lightweight. If I'm wearing a pair of jeans, or if I'm hunting, I might carry something, maybe a little heavier. So I think it's really task specific. I know, of course, I own a knife company. So whenever we create a new knife, I stick it in my pocket just to make sure everything's okay and I use it. So I've got a row of knives on my dresser, and you'd think every day I'd pick up the same one. But depending on what I think I'm going to be doing that day, sometimes I'll grab like a thermogenic folder, or, hey, I know I'm going to be busy. We're going to the range today. I'll grab a Harsey. If I'm going to woods, I might grab a fixed blade. So I think it's like any other tool. Really depends on, what is my task for today? if you know you're going to do something very task specific, you grab a knife for those tasks.
So. Yeah. So that justifies a huge knife collection, right?
Absolutely, because you know how many knives a man needs, right? One more.
Yeah.
Says the guy that sells knives, right?
Yeah. But I would swing with that. I would always say I need one more because
that's
better to have one than needing one, right?
Right. So you haven't asked me that question that a lot of people do, which is if you could carry one knife, what it would be? What's the best knife to carry? And there is no answer. There is no best knife. Yeah. It really depends. What I've seen people destroy knives cutting logs in half when they should have been using a hatchet. Or another good example is when somebody says, "Can I borrow your knife?" But you see their pocket clip. You know they're getting ready to do something with your knife. They're not willing to do with their own. So
yeah, that's a bit tricky, right?
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
That's my girlfriend is. I'm trying to push my girlfriend into knives, and she's getting more and more into it. And just a few minutes ago, I handed her the 3.25, right, with the compass you sent over, and she instantly fell in love with the knife, but was struggling opening the knife because her hands are a bit on the smaller side, right? And she always got her fingers on the lock bar and was like, it's too hard to open. I mean, you have to get your fingers off the lock bar and then it should work, right? And that's a bit getting used to. But I mean, from a person who's not really into knives, getting the recognition that the knife is beautiful, I think that's a huge compliment, right? Because knife guys or knife people view knives from a different angle than people from outside the knife world, right?
I think you're absolutely right. I remember one time I live in Pinehurst, North Carolina, and it's a big golf and retirement community. And I was talking to this woman at church. She's much older and about 80 years old. And she asked me what I did. And I said, I make knives. And she went, oh, my goodness, and took a step back as if, I must be dangerous. And I was very fortunate. I had a custom Harsey folder in my pocket. And I said, I want to show you what I do. Is that okay? And she said, sure. And I showed it to her. Then she started looking at the engraving and she looked at the artwork and the anodizing. She goes, oh, my God, it's beautiful. I said, well, thank you. I said, not all knives are bad. I said, I'm sure you use one all the time at home, don't you? And she goes, you're right, I do.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think it's the fear of the unknown for some people. Once they know knives and they look at it as a utilitarian tool or a work of art or maybe a combination of both, things start to change for them. So I don't know how men go their whole life without a pocket knife. I mean, how do you open presents at Christmas and packages from UPS? It must be horrible. Using a butter knife or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, we here in Germany just last year's November, our knife laws got even stricter.
I saw that.
Yeah, and like the SHFs from you or fixed blades with over 12 centimeters, that should be around 5-inch-ish blade length, are prohibited to carry, right? OTFs and automatics are completely illegal to own and to carry. And that's tough, right?
Yeah.
So for us in the knife and EDC community, I want to get the message across the room to non-knife people that knives are mankind's oldest tool, right?
That's correct.
And not a weapon. In first place, it's a tool, nothing else. And we use it like it and like it should be used, right? And then so we try to convince people that knives are not bad because they are tools and not made to hurt anyone or kill anyone, right?
That's right.
Well, depends, but in the main case or in the first case, they are tools, right?
Right. I equate it to sometimes vehicles. Like, everybody has a car, and they're not offensive, but a car can be dangerous depending on who's driving. And I think that's the same thing. Knives for me.
That's a good example, yeah.
Growing up, were simply a tool. My grandfather was a woodworker, and he would whittle. And all our family members, we still have carvings my grandfather made for us. So for us, a knife was something you made beautiful things with. And I understand it's different for everybody. But in the end, it is just a tool. And most tools can be dangerous if used improperly.
Yeah, exactly.
Hammers, chisels. So, most people, and it's the same here in the U.S., we look at them as a hand tool. It's something I carry that I use daily. We do a lot of shipping here at Spartan Blades, and we receive a lot of things. And we're constantly opening envelopes and packages and cutting string and paracord with pocket knives all day long. But even within the United States, there's some places where knives just aren't accepted as an everyday thing to carry. Where I live here in North Carolina, every man in North Carolina, for the most part, has a pocket clip in his right front pocket. And people don't even give it a second look. So I think it has more to do with society and how people treat each other than the tool itself.
Yeah.
What's the old
100%.
joke? Coca-Cola made me fat. It's not the Coke.
Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah. So let's get to the second question I have here on my whole bunch of questions list.
Sure.
Did you have the idea of making your own knives before you retired from the U.S. Army Special Forces?
I did. When I was a young sergeant, I joined Special Forces, and they sent me to Fort Lewis, Washington. I was in 1st Special Forces Group. Okay. And I was a weapons sergeant at the time. And I wanted to know everything I could possibly know about weapons, because people expect you to be an expert. And while I knew the basics on foreign weapons and cycle of operation, how things operated, how to disassemble them, put them together, I wanted to learn a little more about gunsmithing. So if I'm in a remote location, I can do my job. So on the weekends, I worked at a gun shop. It was a gun shop and machine shop that made parts for Boeing aircraft. And I would work on guns there. Funny enough, there's an old German man named Frank Graf that worked there. He had retired from Boeing. He had been a soldier in the German army as a machinist, a commando. He retired, went to work for Boeing, retired a second time. And this man, talk about hand tools, he could make anything with a slide rule, a ruler, a pencil in his hands. And still to this day, German machinists were considered the best machinists in the world. That's just what you were taught when you worked in a machine shop. If you can get a German to work here, get them in here, because they know how to use their hands and they're taught right. So we used to make rifle barrels, and we would take weight off them by putting serrations in them. He made by hand the device that indexed the different size barrels so we could mill them properly. So so he taught me a lot about gunsmithing, but I noticed he had an old pocket knife, and he told me about it and said, "You know what, Frank? I'm here in a machine shop. I'd like to make my own knife." He goes, "Well, then you should make one." Right? So I did. I made one, and it was really bad. It was really, really bad. We threw it away. Because Frank Graf, he goes, "Well, first of all, I can tell you're an amateur because you're not using a file correctly." So he taught me how to use a file. But we made 2 or 3 knives, and finally I made one that, while it was bad, it did cut and had a good point on it. I still have it in my closet at home. So I made that for myself and was pretty proud of it. And I put it on my belt. Yeah. And I wore it to work one day to go to the field. And one of the guys on my team said, "Can you make me one?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll make you one." And then I made another one for another guy and another guy. And that's how I kind of became a knife maker. So I would just make custom knives, all fixed blades, for friends in the Army. Okay. Awesome. And it started to pick up steam a bit. So I started carrying a case of knives around. I would sell them out the door of my team room. Eventually they said, "Hey, Curtis, you have to go to Asia. You're going to be on a team over there." And I wanted to go. It was a counterterrorism unit, and all the guys wanted to go to this unit called a SIF. Unfortunately, you can't bring tools with you. The government will move your family and your clothes and things like that, but they don't move tools. It's too much weight. So I kind of got out of knife making for a few years. Worked there as a sniper. Came back to Fort Bragg, and I worked at the sniper school. And that's when I started looking at knife making again. I soon thereafter retired and worked as a government contractor for years. But in my spare time, because I'd work 60 days on, 60 days off, usually in Iraq or Afghanistan, when I was home, I had all the free time in the world. So I started making fixed blades again for buddies. But, it was a hobby, something I did in my spare time. Never thought of it as a business. But eventually I went to work for this large corporation. Both myself and Mark Carey, who's my business partner now. As a matter of fact, he's over in the Czech Republic right now. And they're working with on something else over there that I think we'll talk about in a different podcast. But, we got together at this company. We made them millions of dollars. I was the director of marketing. He was in charge of overseas operations. And then they didn't give us our bonus money. So we're like, okay, we got to find something to do. We need to work for ourselves, control our own destiny. So we said, well, what are we going to do? And what we knew was guns and sniper rifles. We'd worked in a lot of weapons development. We said, hey, I think we should build sniper rifles. It's what we know. People in the industry will certainly help us. They know us from the sniper school. But we started looking at that industry, and we found out they buy custom knives to stab each other in the back when it comes to business deals, right?
Yeah.
And we knew it'd be a lot of money to do that. It was very, very competitive, very cutthroat. And then he goes, well, you make knives as a hobby. I wonder if we can make knives. And so we did some research. We looked at it. I knew how to make knives. We had some friends that knew machining. We said, hey, let's give that a try. So I designed 3 models. It was Aries, Orcos, and Erebus. It was a big, long Tanto knife.
Mm-hmm.
We made a batch of 10 each. We made 30 knives. So now we got to figure out how to sell them. We figure out how to make them, but how do we sell them? We said, well, why don't we just start a company and make it legal on paper? And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it does, then it does. But at least we're working for ourselves and we're trying to do our own thing.
Yeah.
So we went to our first knife show out in Oregon. And it's funny, we'd called Chris Reeve and Bill Harsey. Said, hey, we made some knives and we want to start a knife company, but we're not really sure how to do it. And they just were both very, very helpful as mentors and friends. I actually just talked to Bill Harsey right before I got on with you. He told me to tell you hello. So, but they showed us kind of the ropes and, hey, here's some mistakes you don't want to make, and here's some things you might want to think about. Awesome, and we went to a knife show. We sold all 30 of the knives. We were amazed. We're like, good Lord. I guess people like them. Of course, I see some of those knives nowadays, and it's like, a little bit of a cringe because the quality could have been a little better. But people, they liked them, they bought them, so we made another batch, and that was basically the genesis of how we kind of went from the Army to starting Spartan Blades. So
awesome.
Almost by accident.
I mean, like your first 30 knives with your own company, and you got feedback from Chris Reeve and Bill Harsey. I mean, that's like a kickstart, right?
Well, yeah, it's like owning a garage where you work on sports cars. You call Ford to ask for help, and they say, "Why don't you come hang out with us and we'll show you?"
Yeah.
But at the time, we didn't realize that. We didn't know anything about the knife community. We knew how to use knives. We used them every day. Took them on missions, and we're like, "Well, who do we know in the knife industry?" And the answer was nobody. And I said, well, we know the Yarborough knife, because they give it to the graduates from the Q course for Special Forces. So we said, well, they're the only people I know. They must like Special Forces guys. So we called them, and they were just as nice as could be. Now, Chris Reeve gets calls like that. I think, he used to get them all the time. I don't know if he took us serious, but he said, if you come to the International Blade Show, show me what you got, and then I'd be happy to help you. So I showed him the knives. He's like, the quality can be better, but actually they're not bad. And, okay. But of course he's telling us in front of this big booth and people are waiting for his autograph. And we're like, oh, I think this guy's a bigger deal than we realized, So he said, why don't you come out to my house, visit for a few days, and you can meet my wife, Anne, while she's not busy, and you can hang out with us. So we took him up on his offer. We flew out there. And of course, we knocked on his door. Chris was at work. Anne was at home. She didn't know we were coming. So we just kind of walked in the door. She was home alone. I think she was a little nervous, She made us breakfast, and she just kept looking over her shoulder because there's 2 strangers in her kitchen. She was a little worried. But they helped us out and gave us some really good advice. And we're still great friends to this day. Some of our best friends in the world. But, it's a gamble. I think a lot of times, and I do it for folks all the time. They call me and ask me questions. I always try to find the time to help because somebody did it for me. And, in the end, if you're a knife maker and you call and ask me for help, and I tell you, well, that's a trade secret or I really don't want to share that, you'll find out that information, and I'll always be the jerk that didn't help. And I didn't want to be that guy. So I love knife makers. I love the knife industry. People helped us. We try to help other people. So that's kind of the genesis of how we got our start.
That's so awesome. I have to say, it's like, for me, every time I get an interview partner just like you, at the beginning, I'm a bit starstruck. Yeah, because as a knife enthusiast, names like Spartan Blades, Chris Reeve, or you in person, right, are always the people I look up to. And now in my profession, quote unquote, as a podcaster, I got the chance to interview and talk to you guys. And that's like, now I kind of can relate how you felt talking to Chris Reeve as you realized, oh man, he's quite the name in the business, right? So,
and we didn't even realize it at the time. And then when we did, because first time I met him in person was at Blade Show, and it's like, wow, this guy's kind of a big deal around here. It's funny. That's awesome. It's funny. Sometimes we'll be at shows, and somebody will show me, say something about Chris Reeve knives or Ann Reeve, and I'll say, I'm sorry, who are they? What do they do? And they just look at me like I'm an idiot. Then I tell them I'm kidding. But I tell you what I do love about the knife industry. Is everybody treats each other so well. Yeah. I mean, Rick Hinderer, Greg Medford, the Reeves, the guys at ProTech, we all talk to each other. We joke over the phone. I've been to Tim Reeves' wedding. I've been up to Rick Hinderer's house a few times to shoot guns. Me and Mark actually gave a sniper class to Rick and his wife for a week. That was great. Because it's not really competition. People who love knives will always have more than one. And it's more of a community, which is what Mark and I loved about it. I told you earlier, we looked at firearms and we looked at cutlery. And the people in the knife industry were so friendly. We almost felt like we had to do this as opposed to anything else. And, everybody from the collectors to you, podcasters, everybody's great. I mean, I tell people in other industries that, and they're like, well, you're really lucky because that's not common. So I think we have an uncommon community, but I think the knife community is a great one. I mean, it's why I was so excited to talk to you, because I know you're over in Germany. We go over there once a year for the EWA show, and I meet people I've been talking to online for years or on Instagram, and I get to put a face to the name, and I realize, regardless of where you're from, it really doesn't, there's a knife community there, and everybody gets along. I think we're really lucky,
Oh yeah, especially we instantly got a topic to talk about, the huge passion behind it we all have, right?
Yeah.
That makes conversations so much easier to start and to get rolling, right?
Yeah, it's funny because you talked about being starstruck a little bit and all that, and I don't get it, at least not with me. But a lot of times I'll go to a trade show or I'll go to small knife shows just to go look at knives, and I'll see something I think is really cool, and I ask if I can see it. And it's really nice. I want to tell the guy, this is awesome. You did a great job. And I say, I make knives too, and they're like, yes, I know. And for years that didn't happen. They're like, oh, really? You make knives too? And I'm like, I make knives. And they're like, yeah, I know.
That's awesome.
Sometimes I wish I could take my shirt off and hide, put on a hat or something. But it's because people are so nice.
And those glasses with a nose and a mustache underneath it, right?
Oh, I can't wear them because I already have this giant nose and glasses. I used to have a big mustache, so maybe I'll grow it back. You're right, though.
So how did you come up with the name Spartan Blades?
I don't know if anybody's ever asked me that before, and it's actually kind of a unique story. So when Mark and I first started making knives, we did it in an old barn on his property. And we hadn't formed a company yet, but we made the first batch of knives. And somebody ordered a knife online from us, or no, they actually called us, an Army guy, said, "Yeah, man, we'll ship it to you." Well, we didn't have any packaging. We didn't have boxes. We didn't have a company name or anything. So we just kind of wrapped it in tape and cardboard, threw it in a box, and we had a roll of the green, what we call 100-mile-an-hour tape. It's the green Army tape. And we wrapped the whole thing up, and we got into Mark's Volkswagen at the time when we were driving to the post office. And I said, "This package looks like crap." He's like, "Yeah, it's a pretty Spartan way of doing things." So, yeah. I was like, "Spartan way of doing things." So can we call the company like Spartan? He's like, "Yeah, Spartan knives." I was like, it doesn't sound all that great. He's like, "Yeah." And we got to the post office. We were driving back, and I don't remember if it was me or him. We said, "How about Spartan Blades?" Because we make blades. And he's like, "That's actually a great idea." So we made the company Spartan Blades.
Awesome.
Because it wasn't in a movie had come out, I think, a year earlier. So people were like, "Oh, you named it after a movie." And we're like, "No, it's just because we're kind of Spartan the way we did things. We just started with nothing,
Because of a crappy package.
Package with tape. It was probably the ugliest package we've ever had. We're pretty good at it now. Matter of fact, I had to close the door to the office because you can hear the tape out there, shipping department. They're taping things up. So yeah, we were in the car driving between dropping packages off and a package and heading to lunch to get hot dogs. So that's how we came up with the name. So I drew. Well, there's a logo behind me. So I drew the logo. I just did a hand drawing, and we got to turn it to a cleaner logo, and we slapped it on the web page. And those early years, sometimes we wouldn't get any orders in a day, and we're like, "Man, I think the website's broken." We'd place an order for ourselves, and it would come through, and we're like, "Oh no." There's days where we sold a knife or no knives, and Mark and I would take day trips. We'd go have a 3-hour lunch or go drink a few drinks or something because business was so slow. But month after month, it continued to pick up and pick up and pick up, and here we are. So.
Awesome. I love these unique stories behind names. It's so much more like, yeah, I got the name because it sounded cool.
Yeah.
If you have a story behind it, it's so much more fun, right? Because it's always a fun story to tell. Just like the name of my podcast, Tim's Sprachnachrichten or Tim's Voicemails. Mm-hmm. Before I started my podcast, when I got into chatting with friends via WhatsApp and voicemails, my voice messages were always 10 to 20 minutes long, right? So my friends at some point said, "Dude, create a podcast because then I can pause and listen whenever I want." And so I started the podcast, which was originally only made for my friends because so I could just record the episodes, and then talk to them like that. And now it's the name of a podcast, right?
Well, that's why I always tell people, be careful when you're picking your hobbies. Be very careful because it could turn into work really, really quick.
Yeah.
Like for me, it was nice. For you, it's a podcast.
But it's fun, right? Because I got to talk to awesome people, so I enjoy it. And for those people who ask me, what's the fun about creating a podcast and recording all those episodes and all the work around it? And my answer is always because I get to know the answers to my questions before you guys do.
Well, and you're creating a little bit of history too. If you think about the history of mankind, everything was passed down on paper or word of mouth. This podcast could be there for a long, long, long time.
Oh yeah, I hope so.
And a lot of times we do things, we don't think much of it, but years later it becomes a part of history.
Yeah.
So there's that too.
So after you got your name from a package wrapping, how did Spartan Blades come to fruition? Well, was it just like the Rolling Stone you mentioned, who got into rolling and got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and got sped up every now and then?
Actually, that is a good part of it. I think the other part is, once we realized people wanted the knives, I'll tell you, I'm a bit of a cheapskate. So when we looked at our cost and we figured, what the blades people are going to have to pay for them, just based simply on cost, I was like, I don't know if anybody will buy them. I just I know we use the best quality steel and all the processes because we thought anything you make, you have to make it the best, like weapons development in the Army, the best cryo, the best this. And it might, I don't know, maybe that wasn't the case, but that's how we started out. So I think people saw them as good quality knives and they thought they were a good bargain for what we're charging. It was just new to me. I was always in the business of spending money, the government's money, right? I want this rifle. I want this ammo. We want to travel here. We want to do this. I'd never made money before, other than a company I worked for a short time after military. So it was all kind of new to us. But we said, hey, let's, if this thing's going to work, which we assume it's going to because we're going to make it work, let's set it up as if we're a big company. So we don't have to go back. So we don't have to go backwards. So my partner, Mark, when it comes to administrative stuff, he's fantastic. Photographic memory. He's very good at administrative things. He was a medic in Special Forces, and we always joke he's the smartest guy in Special Forces. So I'm more of the kind of the outgoing art guy, idea guy, marketing guy. I talk to people on podcasts. My desk is covered. It looks like a unicorn threw up on it. There's guns and just different color stuff and rulers. And Mark's got a bunch of white paper and a PC. I have an Apple, right? So, but we knew together we could mix what we were good at and what we weren't, and we could build a pretty good company. We were confident of it. We don't do things to lose, and that's planning for failure. We just don't do that. So we just assumed it was going to work out. So we said, let's set up systems in place so as we grow, we can keep up with demand. And we did that, whether it was working with our heat treaters, the people at Iron Bond. We actually drive there to drop our knives off and pick them up. So we've known them for 16 years. So, I've seen presidents come and go, and I think we've worked at Iron Bond as long as any of the employees, right? So we developed those relationships, put systems in place. But we're selling our knives all by ourselves online. And we said, hey, listen, when I go online, I see a lot of people selling knives, but they don't make them. They're dealers. We should probably reach out to these people. And very quickly, people liked what we were doing, bought our knives and started to resell them online. And that was a big boost and a help. And then, you have to do it all. When you plan a mission, you look at different courses of action. You pick the one you think makes the most sense and you mitigate all your risk, because you don't want to get killed. Well, we kind of treated the company more like it was the Army than it was a company. I think, especially in the first days. We learn pretty quick when somebody calls up and they've got a problem with your knife, because they ordered the wrong color. You can't tell them you come to their house and kill them. It doesn't work in business. So we had a little bit changing from Special Forces to business. So Mark and I agreed, hey, listen, we'll always treat people right. Even if they're wrong, treat them like they're right, because sometimes they are. And we put the plan into action, and it just kept growing and kind of, like you said, like a tumbleweed. Just kept tumbling year after year with growth. But I always tell people, treat people right, do good things, and money is the byproduct of doing those. So nobody cares you're in Special Forces. That's good for marketing one time in a magazine. But if the knives suck, well, here's what Chris Reeve told me. When we were first starting our business and we were planning, he's like, listen, guys, the fact that you're young and you were Special Forces, I wasn't always an old man. He goes, the fact that you were young in Special Forces, that might get someone to look at you. But if you make crappy knives, you're going to have a moniker, and it's going to be the Green Berets who make crap. And that was great advice. He's like, focus on the knives, make it about the knife. And, when you're making knives like I do in big bunches, sometimes you forget they're actually part of somebody's life. So make the knife, make it good. Remember, it's part of somebody's life, and treat those people right. You never want to have to try to remember whatever lies you told. So just tell the truth all the time, and it'll work. And he was right. Make a good knife, treat people right, and your business will thrive.
Yeah. If you create these perfect knives or high quality knives,
there you go. We don't like the word perfection in knife making.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. We know that.
The quality is the best advertisement you can get, right?
Yes.
Because if I unbox a knife, get it in my hand, and I get the feeling, some edges, some corners are feeling not good, the blade is dull, whatever, I automatically remember the brand with the not so good knife, which cost X amount of dollars or euros in my case. But if I unbox a knife and it got a great presentation, you unfold it, and it feels instantly awesome, and it's like this silent satisfaction coming, you feel, right? And that's the best advertisement you can get, because the feelings the customer gets when unpackaging and unfolding the folder or handling the fixed blade for the first time, and when that hooks, you got it, right?
Yeah,
that's the point you got to create. Yeah.
Well, it's like in marketing too, and advertising, you almost can't use the word quality anymore because so many people use it. It doesn't mean anything. The only thing you have true control over is the knife and whether you made it good or not. And listen, sometimes we make mistakes. We've made some models in the past that haven't done so well. Quality, it's really, really hard. You have to purposefully make things good, and we're always trying to improve. I mean, even on some of our most popular knives through the years, we've made a small change here, small change there. I mean, on the Harsey Folder, for example, I know you have the 325. We used to have a male and female pivot. We went to a barrel and 2 screws so you can do fine adjustments. We want finer thread pitch so people can tune it just the way they like it, or allows us to send it out where it's smooth. I know when we first started, when you got a Harsey Folder, you had to work it for a while till it smoothed out. We're even thinking about adding a slight sharpening choil next year, which drives Bill Harsey crazy. He's like, you should know how to sharpen a knife. It doesn't matter. It's like, yeah, well, customers want sharpening choil. So, even now with, it was American Made Knife of the Year in 2016. There's still small things where we look at to improve. So I think quality is about making good product, but then you have to keep trying to improve it.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah.
We recently, and I'll say this because it's true, we just did a new knife called the Soder, and it was the best rollout we've ever had. And I tested the thing for a month nonstop. I was like, it's perfect. Well, we found out when people hold the lock back on it and they flip it around, it leaves a tiny little ding near the choil on the blade. So we recalled them all. Every one of them, we got to redo all of them. Luckily, we caught it in the first week. But I probably could have just let it gone out. Nobody would have complained, But that's just, you can't say you make quality stuff if you don't do the quality things. And sometimes they're hard.
Yeah.
I mean, the rollout was the first time I ever got everything right for a new product. And I had to recall it 3 days later. It was heart-wrenching. But you know what? In the long run, if you do the right things, it always pays off in the long run. Always. Yeah. Somebody may buy that knife because they know, hey, there was a mistake, and they fix it. I don't have to worry about the quality. And if it's back for life, I might as well get one. So, like I said, you can't use the word quality when you're talking about your business because everybody uses it, but you have to do it.
Yeah. So. And that's like, for me, I always try to, just like you with your knives, I always try to accomplish something new, get the quality on the next level, right? Create questions that the people listening remember, but you also remember that I ask you that specific question, right? And it's always, for me, when I created the podcast, I got stuck with the motto, embrace the process, because quality is a process, right? You always got to push it up a notch and always try to work on yourself and push your product, in that case, to the next level, and always try to push forward. So I always try to embrace the process in pushing my own quality, just like you.
That's great.
So what was the biggest obstacle you got to tackle in the early years?
Oh, wow. I'll be honest with you, we didn't run into a whole lot of obstacles. I think the biggest obstacles were learning the things you didn't already know. I think the relationships between manufacturers and dealers, we didn't have a clear understanding of how those relationships should have worked. I think we even used to say it back in the day, hey, listen, we make the knives, it's your job to sell it. So why would I provide you pictures? That's your job. Why would it, but that's just not the case. It's a partnership. I mean, the way we look at our dealers now, they're part of our business. They're our business partners, right? We had some folks after COVID, they got bullwhipped. We could have wrote, dealers could sell almost anything during COVID. I mean, the sales were through the roof, and then it just it slowed down a bit, and a lot of them bought a lot of extra inventory. And at first we're like, well, we don't allow discounting. We make them, you sell them. You need to work harder to sell them then. But then we switched over to Magna Cut. So a lot of people were sitting on a lot of S45 EN, and some of the dealers were like, hey, listen, I've got a lot of S45 EN. People don't want it because they call them, Magna Cut's better, right?
Yeah.
So at first we're like, well, we make them, you sell them, you got. But what we did is said, hey, it took us a little bit of time. We stood back and said, hey, listen, if something's a dealer problem, now it's a Spartan problem. So for the first time in the history of our company, other than Black Friday, we let dealers discount our knives. So last month we sent out a letter and said, hey, listen, if you're sitting on S45 EN, discount it, blow it out, and then we'll get you some Magna Cut. And I've had 3 or 4 dealers call us back, say that's the single greatest thing Spartan's ever done. A lot of people, because awesome. S45 EN is a great steel. And a lot of people know that, and they're like, hey, listen, if I can get it at a discount and get S45 EN, I'll take it. So almost all our dealers instantly sold all of it. And they were really happy. Allowed them to recoup them funds, which, you'd hope they'd buy some Magna Cut from Spartan Blades, right? But I think that's one of the biggest obstacles is the learning that what's a Spartan Blades problem is a dealer problem. And if it's a dealer problem, it's a customer problem. So we're kind of part of an ecosystem, and we're all in it together. I mean, it's not about making as many knives as you can, pumping them out, and hoping to retire with a bunch of money. No, man, no. I mean, people bury their fathers with their pocket knives. They give them to their children. Some people spend money they don't have to do something special for a good friend who did something for them. I think if you look at the knife as that kind of thing, where there's an attachment between the guy we buy the steel and the guy gives it to his son, and you realize it's all one ecosystem. If you look at things that way, business goes a lot easier, and you endear yourself and you make friends with the customers and your dealers and your friends in the knife industry. But as Green Berets, we're like, hey, it's a war, we're going to win it. It's kind of how we looked at it in the beginning, and that's not what it is. So you have to take care of everybody all the way down the chain, or you're not a real knife company. You're not a good knife company.
Yeah, that's so funny because you talked about passing down a knife from generation to generation, and my first pocket knife was an anchor knife that I got from my grandpa. The knife now has about, let me guess, 70-ish years on its back. It looks horrible, right? Because it always got sharpened by on the stone stair steps, right? Down to the down to his work, and it looks totally horrible. I don't use it. I resharpened it once and put it away, and now it's sitting there. And always when I look at it, I get a big smile in my face, but it stays right there because I don't want to get it lost or completely broken. Right? I just want to have it sit there and be the magnificent piece it is, and not getting more usage.
I bet if I offered you $500 for it, you'd say no.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's probably worth $40, $50 maybe in real life to somebody who doesn't know what it is. You would take $500. So in between there's value, right?
Yeah.
That's real value to you, right? So it's
exactly.
I think when we started out, we didn't realize one, there's such a big knife community, but you learn as time goes on, it's been 16 years now, what some knives mean to people. Some of them are just special, man.
Yeah, exactly. And then I can imagine for you as a maker of knives, it's always awesome or heartwarming to hear if someone passed down their Spartan Blades knife to their son or to their daughter or whatever, right?
Yeah. So my son was in Afghanistan. He was there with me. I worked for the government there doing something else after I retired. But my son, Mark, my business partner, his son, little Mark, and his daughter all went to combat. And we made knives for all our kids. So they carried them. And I know they'll never get rid of those. I'll show you a good example of a knife that has value built into it. So I was working in Iraq at the time, and I had a pretty bad trip. I came home, and now I turned the government off. Now it's Spartan Blades for 60 days. I sit down at my computer, and there's a knife case on my keyboard. And I'm like, Mark, what is this? Like, why are people leaving stuff laying around on my computer? And he's like, well, why don't you open it, jackass? I was like, oh, okay. So I open it, and in it was a custom Harsey Model 1 made from Torres, Damascus. And so Bill Harsey made this for me for my birthday. I will never sell it. It's priceless.
Yeah.
This is a piece of metal it came out of. So I even got the cutout, so you can see it. So I've saved it for all these years. Awesome. But let's see, when did he make this thing?
Yeah, that's emotional value, right?
Yeah. So he made it in 2010 for my birthday. So, and you can even see the heat treat line running through it. But this is one of our models. I've seen a bunch of them. Bill Harsey hand ground this for me for my birthday.
Awesome.
So even a guy sees knives every day. I still have knives that have a significant emotional connection. Every combat zone I went to, I tried to grab a knife. When I jumped into Panama with the Rangers, I got a knife and I kept it and put it in my rucksack. When I was in Iraq, I grabbed one, Afghanistan, Indonesia. So I got a pile of knives at home that I'll never get rid of because they have memories attached.
Yeah. Those are the big knives for life, right?
That's right.
So what was your first knife design? Is it still around?
It is. It's called Ares. I don't have one laying around here, but it's called Ares. It's a combat utility knife. I figured, well, if we're Army guys and we're going to make a knife, we got to make a fighter, right? I knew nothing about knife design. I just drew something and we made it, and we got pretty lucky with it because those first few years, it helped keep our business alive. But it was called the Ares, and it's got a swooped blade,
just like the Greek god of war, right?
That's right. Well, we always joke. You know what the hardest part of making knives is? It's the names and the sheaths. The name and the sheath. We tried every name on the planet, and we would Google it, and somebody was already using it. And we were like, are we just going to call it like the Spartan Model 001? We didn't know what to do. And then we started looking at Greek names, and we didn't realize how many Greek gods and deities and sprites and other things there were. And we're like, hey, I think we can use this. So, we figure we're Spartan Blades. Let's look back, back in history, and we rested on all these Greek names. They've worked out well. And I think people like having a name on their knife. Because when they call here, they refer to, I'm looking for Ares or Orcos and Nyx, a Frike.
Yeah, it's always awesome to have a name to your model because the name sticks, right? Yeah. Just like, not like a bunch of numbers, a few letters, 2 letters, and then a bunch of numbers or something. Just get a good name and it will stick, right?
I know we're going to talk about it in something else, but we're going to start making knives in the EU, and I know we'll talk about that later. But just for name's sake, we're like, what do we call these knives? Do we stick with the Greek thing? And I was like, well, I want people in Europe to have their own knives. That's hard for Americans to get, just like it's hard for them to get the American knives now with the shipping. So we went round and round about what we could use for names. And again, we just came to a standstill. And then we go for the EWA every year. I said, you know what I love about the folks here at the EWA shows? There's so many outdoorsmen, people that spend time outside. And, and I wish I could do more of that. And I think it was Mark said, how about trees, the different trees outdoors? And we're like, that's it. So we're doing a small EDC model. It should be coming out in a few weeks called Willow. Then there'll be the Linden. So we're trying to stick with names, either the maker's name or some form of wood or tree.
Awesome.
Yeah. So.
As a carpenter, I love it.
Oh, great. There's another famous carpenter that had hair like yours and a big beard. I can't remember his name. Jesus. His name was Jesus. Good guy.
I hope so, yeah. Which design brought your name to the forefront of the knife industry?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that probably the biggest one would be the Difensa. That's a knife we make for an element of the Canadian Special Operations Regiment up in Canada. They called us. It's funny, they're doing a historical thing now, so I had to send them a bunch of historical data the other day. But they called us and they said, "Hey, listen, we need a field knife." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, we'd be happy to build you a field knife. What are your requirements?" And they explained the requirements, and they said, we do counterterrorism and we do combat operations, but we do domestic stuff in the woods here in Canada. So we'd like something that's lightweight, easy to carry, but can kind of chop with it. So we made them one similar to the one I just showed you, slightly smaller, called the Difensa. And once we did that one, that was a big hit for us. It kind of, people saw that and they liked it. They sold very well. But I think it was a great one for us because we were in 1st Special Forces Group, and the guys up in Canada, every year we'd get together with them and do a celebration called Menton Day. It was the deactivation of the 1st Special Service Force from World War II. It was combined American and Canadian unit, Special Operations Unit. So I asked them, I said, well, listen, I appreciate you calling me and I want to do this, but I'm just curious, why not a Canadian knife makers for the Canadian Army? And they said, because we want our shared history built into it the day we get it. I said, well, what do you mean?
Awesome.
And they're like, our lineage goes back to your unit's lineage. We'd like Bill Harsey to be involved because he worked with Colonel Rex Applegate during World War II. And he makes the U.S. Army Special Forces knife. You guys are our brothers. We want to make something that has some history built into it. So we named it after the first battle in Italy. Mount La Difensa was the first action with the 1st Special Service Force. And we've been making them for that particular element ever since. But we said, hey, guys, you're a small unit, and it'd really help us out a lot if we could do a civilian version of it. And they're like, good, as long as you don't use our markings and our logos, and that's fine. So Difensa became a product for us, and that really put us on the map. That took off. I always joke, a fixed blade knife, if you imagine it in your head, where you have 1,000 people draw on a whiteboard what they think a knife looks like, and you superimpose them all together to make one knife, kind of looks like a K-bar fighting knife, right? So I always joke, the Difensa kind of looks like a knife should look, a good combat knife should look. Mm-hmm. And people fell in love with it. They liked the history of it. They liked Bill Harsey. We did the best job we could manufacturing it. And it's always done well. They never come back, and we never see them come back here. So that was probably number one. And I think number two, a few years later, would have been the Spartan-Harsey Folder.
Oh, yeah.
We did with Bill Harsey. And, it's funny because I'll talk to Bill, and he goes, well, what do you want in this knife? I said, I just want it to be the best knife you ever made, Bill. Make it a world-class knife, the best you ever did. He goes, oh, is that all? Okay, well, I should have it to you by 6 o'clock. We always joke. But, man, he hit it out of the park with that. He's done similar designs, and, you can tell a Harsey knife when you see it, even if it's super simple, which I think is a successful trait. But he did that knife for us, and he's like, guys, I want to do a very, very high-quality knife. Can you just promise me that? And we promised him we'd do the best job we could making it. And it won, like I said, it was 2016 American-Made Knife of the Year, and it's just done great ever since.
Oh, yeah. I can totally relate. As the 325 arrived Monday. That was yesterday.
Oh, just in time.
Got it. Yeah,
Oh, good.
I got it out of the box, and I was instantly blown away.
Oh,
because it felt for me, I got a top 5 knives list, right? Knives I always tend to carry the most, and I played around with it, opened it a few times, and every opening and closing I felt how the action got smoother and smoother. And I was so happy, and was like to my friends instantly like, oh man, this is a huge contender for my top 5 2025, right? Because it's, even if it's the small version, it feels so awesome in hand. It opens and closes so smoothly. The looks of it are clean, and the compass version for me hits 100% my taste. It's just pure fun, and
awesome.
Every time I feel it or use it, I know I can rely on it, and that's all the boxes I need to check on a good knife, right? So, yeah, awesome.
Well, and it's awesome, back for life.
Knife.
We sharpen any knife we've ever made. We'll sharpen it free for life. And
that's awesome.
It's funny. Somebody asked me one time, "What's your warranty policy?" It's like, it's on our website. We have one. I never read it because if you have a problem, we're going to fix it. So it doesn't really matter what the policy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a guy. His fixed blade knife got ran over by an armored vehicle in Iraq, and he goes, "It's just a ding to point up a little bit." And he goes, "I know you don't cover that by warranty." He's like, "No, we'll cover it because you didn't lie to me. You just told me what happened. Awesome. You're honest. We just want your knife to be. We'll take care of it. Awesome. So we do those kind of things. People lose a screw, we fix their screw. You can tell when somebody's really lost their screws; they're upset. But, so we try to do those things. Basically, if your knife's got an issue, we do our best to fix it, and turn it around the same day.
So the next question, you definitely have to, right? Because it's like part of the company quality, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. You don't want and bad reviews stay around forever. So just And the other thing I like doing is people call up and they're like, I thought it was going to be longer, man, whatever, this or that. I was like, well, we'll take it back. We'll take it back. And they're like, oh, really? Yeah, we'll take it back. Or if you want to trade up, we try to keep people happy. It's you don't grow a successful business by saving $13 or $80. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Exactly. So the next question is, and I think I got a feeling that I already know the answer. I have a suggestion I would like to make.
Okay.
Is there a thing which impacted the course of your company the most? And my wild guess would be the conversation with Chris Reeve you just talked about.
Absolutely. Impacted the course of our company?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that set us in the right direction. If you can be off a little bit at the beginning, and you can go down the wrong path early on. I talked to Ann. I always thank her whenever we're together. We go to visit. She's like, "We really didn't do much, Curtis." I'm like, "But you did. You set us in a direction, and you gave us some small things to avoid that would have became bigger and would have been a hindrance to our success." And she tends to underplay it, but I don't think sometimes she realizes how she set us on the right course and helped us avoid the things that might have hurt us. So even those smallest things in the beginning really matter. So as far as setting us on the right course and in the right direction and setting example for us to follow, not just in quality and knives, but in the way you treat people, the way you deal with people, and how you do business, they helped her. She helped us a lot. Ann and Chris, both of them, and they're each in their own way. So they push us in the right direction.
Yeah, I can imagine, because it's just like we talked about in the early years, talking to someone like Chris Reeve or Ann Reeve with their huge experience in the knife industry has to be company impacting, right?
It absolutely is. And I think, people, especially in early days, a lot of people underestimated Anne, I think, because Chris, he's a powerhouse. He's a personality. He's very, very talented. But from day one, Anne Reeve was helping run that business. She handled all the admin side, all the shipping, the payroll, the ordering of materials, machine tools, machine coolant. So both of them played a big impact on us. And, she just won a Lifetime Achievement Award at the International Blade Show for good reason. Super, super knowledgeable, but super, graceful too. They're both really special people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So what's the biggest challenge in creating these magnificent knives you create?
I think the biggest challenge is the initial design process and manufacturing of the tooling and making the first knife. Now that's the stuff people never see. It's what keeps me up at night and drives me crazy. Especially if you're working with people, if you have folks making parts with you, we do the bronze line stuff now to make more affordable knives. So sometimes you'll think, whether it's you're working with your machinist or your heat treater, you think you're conveying an idea and they just do the complete opposite because you didn't express yourself properly. You didn't explain things properly, or you'll make a comment and they're like, oh, that must be what he wants because he commented. So when you have people working for you, I think, it comes down to leadership, but still, it's usually the design process of the first knife. I draw everything with a pencil and markers, and I draw it on my iPad. I get a 2-dimensional, but, how thick is it? What degree is the angle on the distal taper or the side? Fingers don't change. So, big knife, small knife, that finger size has to stay the same. It has to relate. How does it feel in the hand? A lot of those things you figure out over time, but I tell you, we make a lot of models. We do a lot of these different plastic models. I got them all over the place because you have to feel it in your hand before you make it a product and send it to somebody. So I would say one of the most challenging parts is coming up with a new design. Just because you like it, is it something people are going to like? I know Mark, for instance, he loves Tanto blades. He likes the fact that they penetrate. He likes having a sharp, straight edge for cutting things. They just don't sell all that well for us. We've tried it in the past, and we've had to discontinue them, even though we personally like them. So not only can you make what you want, but you have to make what the customers want, too, without compromising quality. So I would say the design, manufacturing, and then implementing that into the system with the dealers these days, because we're kind of know how to do this now, that tends to be one of the harder parts.
So what's the most fun thing?
Ooh, probably that hard part of designing the knives. It's challenging. Yeah, it's heart-wrenching and fun all at the same time. I think one of the funnest things is when we develop a product, we make a new knife, when we make that first batch, because it's new for us. We see knives all day long. I mean, just nonstop, we're making knives all day long. And then even for the guys in the back of the shop, they're like, ooh, something new. So I think a lot of times you're seeing that new knife, knowing you thought of the idea, you put it on paper, and you hold it in your hand. And then I think one of the other satisfying things about the job is when people come in here. We're at Fort Bragg, so a lot of guys here have our knives, and they'll bring them in to be sharpened. But you'll see them, and you can tell they've been dinged against rocks, and they try to sharpen it themselves overseas, and it's all messed up. But I love seeing the knives when they're used and beat up. And then we put a new edge on it. We'll clean it up, oil it, put it back together, and give it back to them. I like seeing the knives that have been in people's possession for a while because, it's part of what they do or who they are, So, yeah, that's probably the most satisfying thing. And the other thing as a businessman is growing the business. When you see it grow, it's pretty satisfying.
Yeah.
Because that's your indicator that maybe you're doing something right. Right? After all these years, people still want to buy your knives and they trust you. So I think growing and coming up with ways to grow and paying attention to business and all the working parts, I'm starting to find more joy in that now, even as much as knife making. I used to sharpen every knife in the shop up until just a few years ago. Actually, a current sharpener.
Wow.
He just got in a motorcycle accident. So I've been sharpening for the last 2 weeks. I've been sharpening all the knives. But that was part of the love of it. But running a business, you train guys after 6-7 years, they get pretty good at their job, and they really don't want me back there messing with things because they probably can't do as good a job as them. So I spend more time doing the admin and in running the business. But I do find joy in that. So
That's awesome. Yeah.
But mostly, I love doing podcasts. That's my favorite.
Talking and talking and talking.
That's right. Everybody's good at
talking knives.
Right, that's right. See, I used to get in trouble as a kid in school for talking all the time, and I tried to tell her someday.
I can relate. Yeah.
Someday people will want me to do this, ma'am. Okay, but right now you're going to detention. Yeah.
So let's dip our toes into the Czech Republic for a moment, right?
Okay.
So what does the Czech Republic play? What role does it play in your upcoming brand development? I know we will dive into that in another episode, but maybe we can dip our toes into it right now.
Well, sure. Well, so every year we go to the EVA show in Nuremberg. And we've been going there for, I think, 13 years now, I think. And we've made lifelong friends over there. There's an old couple we met there. We eat dinner at their house in Nuremberg. Every year we go there. And they have nothing to do with knives. They're just nice people. We met them and they invited us to dinner. And, the more and more we go there, we make friends. We have friends all over Europe. We realize there's a great knife community there. And but our knives cost almost double in Europe. You go to buy a knife in Germany, it's literally almost double. And they're not cheap to start with. It always bugged me. Why do knife lovers, why they pay the import tax, the VAT, shipping, there's all these costs involved. I'm like, how do we solve that problem? How do we get knives to people over there that don't cost double? And, we looked at different ways of doing things. We're like, do we start a company called Spartan Blades Euro? What do we do? We talked to the Italians, and I love those guys, Maniago, but they're busy too. And they're like, we just don't have capacity to do lines and knives. We talked to the Germans. Maybe there's some folks in Germany can help us, Soligan, but with their energy issues and others, it just didn't make sense. And we're still going to raise the price of the knives too much. So we came to the conclusion that if we want to make knives, if we want affordable knives in the hands of people in Europe, we have to make them here or there.
Yeah.
So how do we go about that? Well, about that time we were investigating how to do that. We met a young knife maker. His name is Andrzej Nemec. And you may be familiar with Andrzej. He started a company called ANV Knives over there, and he did a really good job. But I think he was looking to do something a little different, and we were at the time. We became fast friends. And we decided, hey, if we're going to make knives in Europe, let's make them ourselves. Let's make them the same quality as our gold line knives in North Carolina.
Awesome.
So Mark and I, we got our challenge coins out. We were going to flip it to see who had to go live over there. And we decided, hey, we need to find somebody in Europe that could do the same job we do that we know won't mess the knives up. And the name that kept coming back was Andrzej Nemec. He's young, he's aggressive, super talented, wise beyond his years. So we approached him and said, hey, listen, we want to start another branch of Spartan Blades over there, but we want it to be uniquely European. We want European steel made there. And every design we do won't be one we make in the U.S. because we want, for years, people in Europe bought our knives that were difficult to get. I said, if we're going to make knives in Europe, I want it to be for European people. And if people in the U.S. want them, they can pay the exorbitant price and the VAT and shipping to get those knives over here to make it fair, right? Because you want to take care of them. So what we did is we found Andrzej. He lived in the Czech Republic. We went to visit him. There's a lot of talented people there, some great machinists, just fantastic. Most people had a great education and were willing to work hard. So we set up a shop there. We started about a year ago, not to get too deep into it, but we set up shop about a year ago. We brought in new grinders, new blasting equipment, tumbling equipment, everything machine work to build knives. And we just finished our first small I can show you. So we just finished our first small EDC knife. We want to start simple so the guys can practice grinding. So people might be familiar with our Enyo knife. It's similar to the Enyo, but it's very small in size. Beautifully machined. We did all the grinding ourselves here. And it fits in some great kydex. And we're doing our own kydex for the first time. It's something we haven't done here. So that'll be coming out in a few weeks here from our new shop. So that's the first knife we made there. And things are picking up steam. Awesome. We're working on a fixed blade with a fellow named Raul Seuss, who's a bit of an outdoorsman in Europe. We're going to do a Harsey Folder there probably next year.
Wow.
I don't know if you're familiar with the T3 or T4 that Bill Harsey did years ago, but we're going to do a big, giant pocket knife, an outdoorsman type knife. So, and those will, we're hoping to make them affordable enough where dealers in Europe can afford to buy them and make a profit, but the customer doesn't have to pay an exorbitant amount of money. So we love it over amazing, there. Yeah. I always say I can move to Germany tomorrow and be just fine. But we wanted to make our knives affordable over there. We thought that was the best way to do it. So we're calling the company Euro Blade Works, or EBX. And they're going to warehouse all our knives we make here, plus everything they make there, for sale online to their dealers in Europe.
That's so awesome. That's the first time I hear from a company taking those steps to make their knives affordable in Europe while producing Europe exclusive knives.
Yeah.
And I think, and I have to say, I know I mentioned it in our mail exchange, but this is for me a sign of love towards the EDC knife community. And I really have to thank you for that, because because you are taking steps and risks on your own, on your business, to get this done, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the best thing we can do is to appreciate it and give the love you show with it, with those steps, back to you, right?
Well, I hope so. I hope it works well. I mean, I'm 61. Oh, yeah. I'm 61. I don't know how much longer I'll be around, but I would like to think someday when I'm not around here anymore, we'd be making some beautiful knives here and there.
Yeah.
Because it's like we talked about earlier. It's a community. It's a knife community. It's an EDC community. And when you go online, you talk to people about knives. I mean, I've talked to people 6-7 months and realized, oh man, the guy lives in Poland. It's awesome. I got a friend over there. I think talk about knives and how well they cut and edge retention. But what I don't hear a lot about is the camaraderie and the friendships you develop in the knife community. It's special. And if you're watching this and you only own a few knives, you don't get it, start looking at knives. Go to some forums online or on Facebook. You'll meet lifelong friends. I mean, you really will.
Yeah, 100%.
And you might learn a thing or two, and a knife can save a life, right?
Yeah. In my knife friends world, right? I only got one close friend living nearby into knives. The rest of the guys I got to know via Instagram, Facebook, some via knife exchange, right? Because, oh, that's an awesome knife, you want to trade? And then you get rolling and you get conversations started. And so your whole friendship grows, right? So
oh, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, definitely. 100%.
We'll grow it some more.
Yeah. So what's the one thing that embodies Spartan Blades the most?
That's a good question. And I know I've seen this list. The one thing that embodies Spartan Blades. I think, I told you before, I don't like using the word quality. So I'll just say good made knives for people that care, that give a shit.
Yeah, okay. I can swing with that 100%.
And I guess for us, it's still a mission, right? You see so many guys who get out of the service and they have a hard time. And I think a lot of times it's because they don't have a mission anymore. And I don't think this just goes for Army guys. I think it's for anybody in life. Set a mission for yourself. and then work towards accomplishing that mission. And that journey of accomplishing what you want, you'll learn a lot. You'll learn a lot about yourself. You'll learn a lot about people, and you'll make lifelong friends,
Yeah.
And then when you get old, you don't have to wonder what you should have done. You try to accomplish something.
So what's your personal highlight in the history of Spartan Blades?
Ooh, that's a good question. I honestly, I think it's the stories. Like I said, we're right here at Fort Bragg, so we have a lot of, we've got the 82nd Airborne here. We've got a few Special Forces groups that have come and gone. Some of the Tier 1 guys. When they come by the shop, bring a case of beer, bring a knife, and tell us about how it saved their life, that's the best.
Oh, yeah.
And, we've never used that stuff for marketing. We don't ask them. We don't talk about it online. We don't do it. But I'll tell you here, it happens way more than people like to believe, usually during raids at breach points. But when those guys come back here with a case of beer, say, this knife saved my life, there's nothing better than that. There's nothing better,
Yeah.
It's happened several times. Yeah.
Yeah. Your knife saved a life. And that's like, we just talked about it earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being a tool and now pushing that tool towards a lifesaver. I mean, what's not to love about it, right?
Yep.
So the last one is always the one question, or now it's more like I want you to think about it, not like a real question, right? It's always the one thing that that strikes people or my interviewees the most. Spartan Blades in 3 words.
Ooh, this could help me solve a problem. Okay, my 3 words
Awesome.
are knives with intent, which is our tagline, right? But what a lot of people through the years say it sounds kind of menacing. Like, just knives with intent. It just sounds kind of bad. The intent might not, like we talked about, isn't to hurt people. Your intent might be to give a gift to your grandson. It might be to open packages. Maybe you got arthritis and things are difficult and you can use it to help you get things done. So knives with intent, it doesn't mean like, somebody's going to jump out in a halo shoot, land on the ground and kill 8 guys. It could be as simple as giving your grandson a birthday present or something, right? So,
or to save a life, right?
Right. So whenever I have the opportunity and I saw 3 words and made me think of our tagline, knives with intent. Intent can mean a lot of things. Right now, our intent is to improve the EDC community and make affordable knives in Europe. That's our intent right now. So that's the intent of our knives that we're making at EBX. So you just gave me an opportunity to say that, because I like to tell people that when I talk to them. Because I know when we first started out, we're like, knives with intent. Oh, yeah, But, yeah,
so that's the beauty of it, right? Because an intent can have so many different meanings.
Right.
And more beautiful meanings than harmful meanings, right?
Exactly. Oldest tool in the world.
Oh yeah, exactly, 100%, and it will always stay that way.
I hope so.
Right. So, Curtis, that was the last question for this episode, right? We will talk again with Andre then, right?
Yes.
And we will dive into the EBX a bit more and get people hooked with it, because I'm already hooked. I'm super excited about the EBX. And I have to say thank you so much for being on my show. It's a real honor for me. And I will talk to you soon, I guess.
All right. Well, no, I look forward to it. Hey, thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And then,
thank you.
And then, we'll do it again.
So, and for all you listening people, all the links to Spartan Blades you will find in the show notes. All the things we talked about, I will link in the show notes. And now I have to wish you a good day. Fill your day with intent, right?
That's right.
And we will hear you, or you will hear us again sooner or later. I hope sooner. And now have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.